Okay, guys. So, as the title says, we're going to be talking about Clicker books for everyone today. My name's Tony. I am from Crick Software, your go-to gal for Clicker and all things Crick Software in Washington. Joined by the lovely Rose. Rose, I'll let you do your intro.
Thank you. Rose Roscoe, occupational therapist and assistive technology specialist for Special Ed Tech Center and many, many years in the school district, as you guys know. And I am a fan of all the wonderful things Clicker does. I've used it for many years, probably 20 years now. So I'm going to be throwing in some of my stories along with Tony's awesome show and tell of some of the great features in Clicker books.
We'd love to get started. We're interested. We could see some of your names. We're interested in your roles, and what you have come to the session for. What expectations do you guys have for today? What were you looking to learn? Jan, you shared you're looking to share resources with your teachers. Matthew, anything you would like to share?
Yeah, well, I'm an occupational therapist, and I work in a variety of, various school districts. I work for ESD 112, so I'm across our region. And at our last region or statewide AT meeting, I feel like I know that I've heard of Clicker in the past, but I felt like I was seeing it for the first time. And so I was like, oh my gosh, I've got to get on board with this and get this into the hands of some of my students. So I just kind of followed the breadcrumbs that Setsi had laid out. I wanted to, get some trials going. So I've been talking with my IT folks and trying to make sure we're whitelisted for Clicker and things like that. So I think I'm kind of just trying to get to the next step of getting the software into some hands for trials and then see, if it's going to stick for any of my students. So that's kind of what I'm hoping to do, is just continue down that road.
Excellent. That's great. And I know a lot of the people who are going to watch this session are in a similar boat right now. They're trying to get whitelisted. They're trying to get Clicker trials started. So hopefully Clicker Books gives you a place to start once you have those details.
I'll just throw in one last thing as far as what I hope to share too, is that I think Clicker Books is actually a great starting point because it's engaging. I've done lessons, which I'll talk about later, with both general ed and special ed kids together, both being able to access Clicker Books, but more scaffolding being available, for kids that might need it. So it's a great tool to introduce in a group setting, as well as you'll see, to introduce lessons and being part of curriculum. So it's kind of a foundational piece of Clicker in my book. One child, good pen. So as you learn about it, hopefully you'll have some new visions of how you might use Clicker Books today.
Definitely. Our agenda, an intro to Clicker Books, hoping to get you guys familiar with how to start with Clicker Books being really an anchor for the options that we provide you, the pre-made options we provide you through LearningGrids, and an intro there, getting started with those LearningGrids. We're going to touch on original book creation and the different components of a Clicker book. We will go through our accessibility options and then, of course, continue to offer you guys continued support. With that said, of course, when we talk about Clicker Books, we are talking about an on-screen book, a digital book. But what makes our books so wonderful is that they are embedded with the familiar Clicker features that students who use Clicker will be used to, including our kind of go-to speech support, the ability to record your own voice when authoring your own book, when students are creating their own books within the program or within the app, as well as the ability for facilitators and teachers to embed word banks or picture banks within a book, providing something similar to a template for kiddos in their original creations. This is a curriculum support. We are providing several hundred books in the form of pre-made materials that support the curriculum. as Rose said earlier, clicker books are a great place to start when it comes to introducing a new topic, a new lesson, a new activity. The clicker book can really anchor whatever it is that you are talking about in your small groups, whole class, individual instruction. Of course, like anything in Clicker, we are offering the option for easy customization, differentiation. It is an alternate form of assessment. What I was talking about earlier was the ability for students to create their own books. So while some units or some topics might end with a piece of writing in a clicker document, it's also great for students to be able to produce a book based on that topic and show what they've learned in the form of their own, authoring their own book. It is a presentation tool. I am actually using a clicker book right now. I'm in a clicker book to show you guys this presentation, to use it as a presentation tool. And of course, it is a UDL, or Universal Design for Learning tool, which we're going to get right into. Rose, do you want to add anything else about clicker books before we get into some examples?
I'm ready for examples.
Excellent. So ClickerBook's a UDL tool. Rose has quite a few examples, as do I. So I will give you the floor, Rose.
Yeah. Well, I've shared this before, so I don't know if you've heard about the research I did using Clicker for my master's thesis quite a few years ago. But here's two examples of how I use Clicker in a group setting with a whole classroom of special ed kids, or a mixed general ed with special ed. So for my research, what was significant about that is I worked with the teachers and the other specialists for the, I think I had 4 classrooms involved in my research. We created units, curriculum units on 8 different topics. So each week for 8 weeks, we had a new topic, and we kind of built on that during the week. And each one was anchored by a book. And sometimes we found a book that was pretty much already made. Sometimes we found a book, but we had to kind of make our own Clicker version of it. And then we built out scaffold activities for learning about it, matching about it, writing about it from that anchor book. But it always started with the book. And so I just found it to be a really powerful, like when I tried to figure out how to design lessons, and I'm an OT, I'm not a teacher by training, but as I worked with the teachers, they all agreed, it all starts with that content that they can relate to. So that was very successful. Another cool example of Clicker as an expression tool. I was working with a student in special ed who was a selective mute, and he was in a 4th grade general ed classroom, as were at least 3 or 4 other kids in special ed, plus probably 5 to 8 kids who were English language learners, right? So what was beautiful is I talked this gen ed teacher into doing a Clicker book lesson. At the time, I was in Kent School District. We had Clicker available to all students, so we were able to make sure all students had access. And we demoed it on the whiteboard, where we demoed how to create their own book and showed them how to simply load a picture or find a picture on the internet, how to do a text box, and how to do a voice note. Three learnings. By the end of 45 minutes, everyone in the class had created a book. You could not tell who the special ed and ELL kids were, because they were just as engaged and creating as everyone else, even though they might have needed a little extra help. And the beauty was we had pre-taught some of the Clicker features to our selective mute student, who was bright, but he lit up because he knew what we were doing, and he was able to kind of help others. And it really gave him an avenue to kind of start getting comfortable coming out. And I think eventually, with the speech therapist did say, he started saying some words, and really, you could see him engaging with this tool. So, it's not always thinking about what one student are you going to use it with, but if you have a student in mind, what environment can you present Clicker in, where they can be along with their peers and everyone can benefit, and they might even become the expert, when it's being introduced to the classroom. So those are a couple fun stories I have. And Tony has one too.
I do. I do. So while I do support Washington, you go all the way across the United States. I also take care of New York City and state. And when I came to Crick many moons ago, New York was my primary territory. And that was at a time where we used to go and physically visit folks opposed to meeting like this. And one of my it was my first or second school visit. I was meeting with a district that had used Clicker for quite some time. And they were I was meeting with an occupational therapist, and she was supporting a teacher in a resource room. And that was the first time I had seen Clicker books used for something other than a book. And the students all had iPads. They were using Clicker books as a means to record their science experiments. So each page represented a different piece of the science experiment. They, of course, had a title page with images on there, but they had a page for their materials, a page for their hypothesis. And I thought that was a creative way to use Clicker books because of the different options that you have in terms of the speech support and the ability to record your voice. And since that time, that meeting many moons ago, I have seen Clicker books in a very different light than just a way to introduce a topic or to give students the opportunity to read, to produce their own materials, to produce their own work, and across the curriculum. So that was very meaningful to me. Rose, anything you want to add before we move along?
No, just wanted to give you guys a way to visualize how you would even use Clicker books before we dive into some of those details. So hopefully you have something in mind that came to you about an experience you've had. Is that our next slide? We're going to ask them if they have any experiences. Yeah. Do you have any examples, or have you seen Clicker books used in any unique ways yet? Maybe you're too new to it, but if you have, we'd love to hear from you.
Hopefully by the time we next meet, you guys will have some examples of how Clicker books has been or could be used.
It does kind of remind me though of like Tar Heel Reader and Book Creator, but maybe it's a much simplified, streamlined version of that kind of piece.
Similar, yeah, that's a good idea. So if you've seen those tools in action in some kind of lessons or activities with your students, you could imagine Clicker being in there and then having, the whole group of activities that go with Clicker books to accompany it. But yes, you think about it in similar ways. Good idea. Good parallel.
All right, we're moving right along. So keep in mind, guys, that the Clicker book that I'm using to present, this will be shared with you guys afterwards, and is really a place to come back to. I want to talk about LearningGrids and the different book types that we offer, but I'm just going to go into LearningGrids to do that. So if you need a little refresher, top left corner, in this third option here, we have our LearningGrids resources. And this is where all of our pre-made curriculum-based resources live. Of course, we could search by topic word, the different curriculum topics, and then set type. So while we have all of these amazing different set types, I'm going to highlight our Clicker books. I want to first highlight that aside from word banks, we have the most or one of the most activities per set type. So of our Clicker books, we have 641 available. And this is because we upload several book types per topic. So as you could see, making a paper airplane, this was one of our most recent topics that we uploaded. And you'll see that we have a read a book, a make a book, and this is two of our types of books. We have three types. Our read a book is going to offer text and pictures on a page with speech support. And then our make a book is one of those templates that I was talking about earlier. What I'll do, I'm just going to close out here and show you guys an example. We're going to circle back to the Billy Goat Scruff in a bit, but I do just want you guys to have eyes on the different kinds of books. And again, there's 3 types here. So we have our read a book. When we come into the actual content of the book, we have our picture, our text, and our speech support. So the read a book is always going to come with the option to have this content read back.
Once upon a time.
Just clicking that will have that content read back. I'm going to move right along. This is the same topic, but this book is called a Read It Yourself. And what you're going to see here is the same pictures with a simplified version of the text. And by its name, we are expecting the student to read it themselves. And then finally, we have what we call a make a book. And I've downloaded these directly from LearningGrids. I come in to the book and it looks bare. This is where we give students the opportunity to produce their own book. So by selecting the edit or the pencil icon, I could come in and I access a picture bank as well as a word bank based on the content that students have reviewed in that topic. And this is what you're getting in LearningGrids per most of the topics is at least 3 books where you're getting a read a book, a read it yourself, and then a make a book. Are there any questions on those options?
That looks great. I was kind of curious though. Can you choose different voices?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. So through options and speech, we have Clicker comes with Ella and Josh, which are children's voices. We have Sharon and Ryan, which are our like middle school age children or older students. And then we also have several voices that you could download from our website. You could also change the pacing. I just want to highlight the fact that while, of course, if you come into LearningGrids and search books, you could find all of our books, all of our different books, but we also have a story corner, which works around our books. So we have our traditional stories, our fables, our myths and legends. And when you select any of these, what you're going to get is one of those topic packs. So with King Midas and the Golden Touch, you're getting a read a book, you're getting a make a book, and you're getting all of the corresponding clicker activities for writing, for planning, for matching that you would expect to see. So I encourage you guys to check out the story corner because these are topics that work around a book. Please, Rose, go ahead.
Briefly, so the story corner is great, but often, like when I was doing my research study or other times, I had a specific topic in mind, and if you type it in there, the books will come up. So if you click clicker books on the left, the box, and then type in plants, yeah, there's a whole series on plants you can look at, or pumpkins, or winter, or whatever it is, fall leaves. So there's a lot of neat stuff that's already pre-made there. There might be times, like I said, you want to customize your own, but the beauty is you can think with 641 books, there's a lot of content to already choose from if it works, into the lesson. But yeah, feel free to just search for the topic you're thinking of too.
Definitely. Okay, now I want to show you guys a couple. I've shown you the book examples. I want to give an example of how the books anchor a topic. And then I just want to run through a couple cross-curriculum books that we have available. Like Rose said, if you guys are teaching to or supporting the teaching of a specific topic, I highly encourage you to search through LearningGrids or encourage the teachers to search through LearningGrids because we do have a lot of content pre-made. So with the Billy Goat Scruff, in this topic, the way we move through this topic is the way we can move through any topic. I'm just using this as an example. So in beginning a topic, we could start with our book, and this could be projected on the whiteboard. We can have students come up and press the speak text icon. We could have them read aloud the room to get this topic on the Billy Goat Scruff started. And this is our read a book with that speech support. If we're encouraging students to read on their own, we have the read it yourself. I think this is also a great option where if we begin with the read a book, we could then have students on their iPads or their Chromebooks read it themselves on their own. And if you want to add speech support to this, you can quite easily. So if you're looking at this thinking, the student I'm working with right now would actually benefit from a more simplified sentence, but they're also going to need that speech support, we could very easily come in and add that for them. So just remember, this is very easily differentiable. So either way, we're going to start with a book, no matter the level. From there, we could pull in some of the familiar clicker sets that students will be used to in using clicker. This specific one is a tell the story activity. It is a talk set, and this allows students to break down the different pieces of the story verbally and then have it retold in their own voice. We could then break down some of the characters using a clicker board, and then answer some comprehension questions using the Connect set and the different options in the support portion of the ribbon. And then finally, as I just showed, we can, of course, finish with the comprehension questions, or we can give students the opportunity to author their own book about the Billy Goat Scruff using a make a book. This option allows for students to utilize the voice note feature and make more of a talking book where they retell the story. So this just opens up the option for students to make their own creation. Any questions on that? Anything you'd like to add, Rose?
I just want to emphasize that we wanted to just give you that brief view of how the different activity sets complement each other in the lesson. And so when you're, maybe you want to just try clicker books with the students one session, but then if you're going to work with a teacher and you want to co-plan something, see if you can come up with a series of activities anchored by the clicker book that build, they have the content, now they're going to build on, interacting with that content and then expressing what they know about it. So I really like that to give you, a picture of how it fits in to a bigger lesson.
And again, that is how we upload to LearningGrids. We're looking to support not only the curriculum, but teachers and facilitators in content and in prep. So one of the books I'm going to show you is Phases of the Moon. This is a science resource, but you could see we have a read a book, we have a read it yourself. We have 2 make a books on this topic, a sentence set, a connect set, a talk set. So the way we upload to LearningGrids is to support the content delivery around the clicker books.
Can I say one more thing? So
please.
When I was doing my research study, I had students functioning, some that might need a matching set, some that were able to write sentences with the word bank. So when you're designing that set, you might have that unit and everyone starts out with the clicker book, but then they may eventually branch off and do their independent work at the level they're able to with the clicker set. So some might do a basic sentence set, while other ones might have a more complicated connect set or word bank. So you don't have to, everyone doesn't have to stay in the same activity the whole lesson either, but they're all anchored with the same content, which is really cool. And you might choose something to do interactive on the smartboard with everybody and then break them off to their computers to do their individual work as well. So just kind of how would you use those differentiated activities that still can be used in a full class lesson? You don't have to take a kid out and only do one-on-one with them at their level. Does that make sense? Yeah. So.
Absolutely. Okay. Back. Into more examples. So we went through the Billy Goat Scruff. What I want to show you guys now is really just hopefully the breadth of books that we have. So cross-curriculum support here. We have a read a book on the Great Barrier Reef. I love to show this topic because I really think that the graphics are so beautiful. Again, this is a read a book. This specific one, as with some of the cross-curricular book examples, science, social studies, you're going to get pictures and you're going to get the vocabulary that's going to become important throughout this topic and that they're going to see in the talk set, in the word bank. But as a read a book exists, we have that picture, we have the vocabulary on the page, and then the ability to have that read back. As I showed you, we can take a read it yourself and make it a read a book by adding the speech support. We can also increase the level of challenge by removing the speech support. So if you're looking to challenge a kiddo or they don't need the speech support, we could very easily just delete that and make it a less supported activity. So that is our Great Barrier Reef read a book. We have Let's Explore Japan. Again, the graphics are great on this one. Excuse me. This is a read it yourself. Of course, we could change it. What is going on with my images here? Ignore that. We'll move on to our paper airplane option. I love this example because we're showing both graphics and our own images. And this is a process book where we're breaking down the steps of a longer process or a longer sequence. Books, clicker books can be used in this way across different topics. So I'm thinking of our activities of daily living. I'm thinking about brushing my teeth, brushing my hair, getting dressed for school. Clicker books can be a way to break down those steps in a way that makes sense step by step. We touched on the phases of the moon topic before. This is one of my favorite topics in books. Again, a read a book, picture, vocabulary, the option to be read aloud. And if you were in our last session, we reviewed the wind and the sun. This is a read it yourself where we have our simplified, typically in the read it yourself, you have a single sentence on the page with our different graphics. So what I'm getting at here is you can use clicker across the curriculum topics or subjects rather to anchor different topics and units. Showed you guys this kind of as we were going through. I believe that with ClickerBooks editing, as Rose said, we very well might have the topic that you're looking for. So go ahead and search it in LearningGrids and then alter what you see. So the examples I have here are to turn a read a book into a read it yourself by removing the speech, or a read it yourself into a read a book by adding the speech. Right now, my presentation is functioning as a read it yourself because I don't have speech, but if I come into edit, you could see I could very quickly make that a read a book style page. Now we're going to get into a little original clicker book creation here. I figured I would go through the different options with you guys and just show you, as Rose said earlier, clicker books could be pretty quick to teach students. Matt has a question.
Sorry, I just wanted to ask before you got on to the next topic.
Yeah.
That, changing it from just read a book to a read it yourself with the speech support, is it like, what are we looking at right here? Is this like what could be on a student device?
Yeah.
Or is this more like the admin?
I see what you're asking. Okay,
like, could you change it on the fly for a student, or could they change it for themselves? Like,
definitely. So what I've just opened is ClickerBooks, the app. What I am in for the presentation is Clicker on the computer. depending on what your student is using is what will, depending on the device your student is using is what they will see. But typically we're seeing students using the apps and staff using Clicker on the computer. On the student-facing app, it is just as simple to make those quick changes. So if I come into ClickerBooks, the app, and I hit that edit, you see it looks pretty similar. I could very easily delete or add speech support. And this is typically what we would see student facing, and they have access to the same edits. So if, you know, we know that the kiddos are so tech savvy these days, if they want to just add or remove that support, they can. If you're working on the fly, you have that ability on all platforms. Other questions, comments? Rose, do you want to add anything?
Nope, I think you got it. I mean, just that simple editing is nice. If you're intimidated by starting something from scratch, just take pre-existing and just change a few things is a great way to go.
What I'm hoping, though, to demystify is the original book creation here. So before we do anything, I'm going to come into Clicker Set, the Clicker Set ribbon, and into New. This is where you would come should you want to create anything from scratch. We're focusing on our books today. These are all of our templates. So we have options for tiled text, if you want headings and pictures. We're giving you a place to start so you're not having to go in, add components, align them. We're giving you a really easy place to start, okay? And what I want to talk to you before I get into my started book, my original Clicker book, is the different components that you're going to see. And we've really seen them through the course of the presentation today. So I'm just coming into edit. And what I'm calling attention to is this side of the screen. You'll see this no matter the Clicker book, so long as you're in edit. And what we have is our text box, and that's this option right here. So if I click that, I'm going to get a text box on the screen. Text box, we can enter text. I have the option to add pictures. I have my read button, and that's this icon here, which I've added. And then I also have the option to add a voice note, or what here in a Clicker book is called the record and play button. So as I move right along into my own Clicker book here. Sorry, I was showing Rose what I had prepped earlier. To show you guys what it looks like to create your own book. I just wanted to add a couple components to a page, play around with the color scheme. So I've started a book here. I'm going to come into edit. I have my picture box, I have some text, and I've added both the voice note, the record and play, and my speak text icon. My advice to you in original book creation is to get everything right on the first page. And the reason I say that is because you're able to duplicate pages. So I have my text box, I have my, my picture box, my text box, and these components. As I move through, I'm able to create a new page or inherit that same design. And that's going to save you a lot of time in editing. Let's go back to my page with the late and great Beefy. I've added a picture, my own picture of my bulldog here. And for students, I have my prediction on, and I could very easily begin typing, of course, with punctuation. I'm going to get that speech feedback. And And here's my page. When I move right along, the way you add to this is very similar to how you're adding in the other pieces of Clicker. So if I want to add a picture, I'm going to come into my picture option. You have all of your Quick Picks options, but I love showing that you could add your own images, especially for students creating their own books. And here I have my cats. Okay.
Chunky.
Chunky. This is Zuba. This is Chunky. So always incorporate the animals here.
I was just thinking one cool feature to show, and this is a good one to do. The green bar, show them how you can slide that up and down to, yeah, see, so that easily, let's say you decide you only have one sentence, you can just shrink that down and your picture will, you have more space for the picture to be bigger.
You could also make the picture more prominent. You can change the outlet, the layout altogether. Like I could do a free layout and add additional pictures to the page, additional text boxes to the page. But you have these different components that remain available both here and in the app version. So as Rose was saying, it's pretty intuitive to add a text box and text, to add a picture box and a picture. Something that I would go ahead, Rose.
From that bar, that little blue bar on the left, you'd click on the component you want on the left and drag it over, right? Or does it?
Let me open up a new page and I'll show you. So this is a blank page. This is a complete blank. To pull any of these in, I'm simply clicking. I'm clicking. Something that is a little hidden, but I think is a great option for a lot of users, but especially the Switch users that we were just talking about, is the ability to autoplay the pages. So in this instance, I'm creating my own book. But if we create this working with a student and then we want them to be able to listen to it independently without hitting anything on or selecting any of the components. In Edit, you have the what looks like the voice note, but this is called the record and play button in a Clicker book. And when you select that and then this icon here, you have the option to play sound when the page opens. And in Go, should this function properly, you guys should hear that.
I didn't hear it.
No, let me do it in a different example here. Let's do it on this page. So I'm adding the record and play, and then I'm selecting play sound when page opens. I'm going to go into Go, come back, and into this page.
Once upon a time, there were 3 Billy Goat Brothers.
You could hear that, yeah. So again, that's not visible to the student. That's kind of a behind the scenes option. Jan, you like that? Good. That's kind of a behind the scenes option. But again, I'm just adding that voice note and playing the sound when the page opens. A great option for our kiddos.
I've used that before when I had a student. I was only a single switch user. So when they hit, this speaker, they want to hit the speaker and change the page, they can do it in one hit, right?
Absolutely.
That's a great function to use with your single switch users that want to have 2 functions with 1 switch hit.
Absolutely. Okay. Awesome. All right, I really just wanted to give you guys a taste of original book creation. Pretty straightforward book. Of course, we're going to get into continued support. If you want to take a look, a deeper dive into the original books creation, you could book with me or Rose and we could take you guys through that. Into accessibility, I feel like this has kind of been to address any accessibility within Clicker on the computer, which is where I am, you're going to come into options and then access. We are, of course, eye gaze accessible. The screenshot that I have up here is that we're enabling ClickerBooks editing when it comes to eye gaze use. If you guys are using or working with any students using Clicker on an eye gaze device, you'll know that the eye gaze device is going to the settings that you've programmed into the eye gaze device are typically going to override what we have here, but we encourage you to mirror them. So whatever is on the eye gaze device settings, you want to have the same thing here, but it is very important if you want students to be able to create their own books using eye gaze, their eye gaze device, to enable that ClickerBooks editing here. And then when it comes to single switches or switches in general, when we come into sequence and clicker sets, you want to allow editing with switches specifically when it comes to ClickerBooks. Amy, like I said, I'm gonna ask our support team kind of how Clicker knows to move through the different components of Clicker, and I'll get back to you on that. The last thing when it comes to accessibility, right now we are working on improving our iPad and Chromebook accessibility, specifically with our apps. At the moment, we are encouraging folks to utilize Clicker through the computer when it comes to accessibility. We're working on a couple new functions when it comes to specifically iPad, but we're a few months out from that new capability. When it comes to access in general, all of that is done through the device settings opposed to through our ClickerBooks or Clicker app settings. And like I said, if you're looking to use specifically ClickerBooks or any of the Clicker apps with your Switch or eye gaze users using those devices, we're a couple months out from a new release, which is going to make that much more accessible for those kiddos.
And are you specifically talking about iPads and Chromebooks?
Yes.
Right.
Yes. Clicker on the computer.
Yeah.
Accessible.
Right. Through the program settings that you're looking at here, but the other two platforms is where you're using built-in settings to the devices until this new feature comes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. We are at the point where we're talking about continued support. In addition to all of the wonderful support you guys get by being in Washington and having SETC local to you, I'm here and very happy to help. So here are my contact details. I'm happy to get 30-minute sessions booked in with you guys. What we have access to is a pretty robust training hub for you guys. We have our on-demand webinar, which is a really good intro for folks who are super new to Clicker. We have our Clicker Basics, which break down the different features by skill on the different devices, tutorials for when you want to get into your own original creation, as well as continued live training put on by our customer experience team. And we also have an app session coming up. What is that? This time next week on the Clicker apps. Of course, ClickerBooks will be mentioned. So we try to provide several places for you guys to continue your Clicker education. And like I said, if you have questions, please feel free to come to me with that.